Buying a home in Connecticut is drastically different than it is in many, many other states and areas. From the parties involved to the contract, the timeline, the dates that you're working with, and everything in between. As someone who specializes in helping people move from other states relocate here to Fairfield County in Connecticut, this is brand new information for many of the people that my team and I work with. They just don't know until they actually decide, we're gonna buy that house. Hi, I'm Beth Grasso with the Grasso Team, and I'm a local real estate agent right here in Fairfield County. And my team and I help people from all over relocate right here into Fairfield County, Connecticut. Let's do a crash course on the buying process, how the whole thing works right here in Fairfield County, and what you and who you need to know to make it a successful transaction. So, let's say that you've made the decision, whether it's out of necessity or you're being relocated, you're gonna move to Connecticut, and Fairfield County is where you've decided you'd like to live. Hopefully you've been watching some of the videos and you think you know where you want to live. You think you know what town would be just perfect. Maybe you've even already begun the pre-approval process, or you've gotten your financial ducks in a row. This means if you kind of know your price range, you might already have been doing some window online shopping. It's really kind of fun to do that, isn't it? Then you can get caught up and be thinking, well, let's look at a $15 million house and see what that would be like. Hopefully, you'll be able to come to Connecticut and house hunt in person. It's always easier to understand the location, the neighborhood, the homes next door, and what the actual house has to offer if you're able to view it in person. But if you can't, don't worry about it. I can do a FaceTime video. I can walk you through. I can tell you exactly what I see, almost as if you were there right with me, right next to me. It typically takes a few weeks, maybe 2 months to 3 months, to actually hone in on the specific neighborhood or the type and style of home, especially if you're thinking you really want that big, beautiful chef's kitchen and you realize that you don't want to have really small bedrooms just to have a big, beautiful kitchen, or you really want bigger bedrooms so you'll sacrifice on the cooking. So if it takes a few weeks of house hunting, then the actual real estate transaction where you formally submit an offer, get it accepted, and do everything that you need to do in order to close, that could take anywhere from 30 days to 90 days, depending on your motivation and needs, and also the sellers, because we have to get to an agreement. So you're looking anywhere, honestly, 1 to 6 months. But if you're more motivated and you can make a decision quickly and you're ready to go, you know what? It just doesn't take that long. I have a buyer that I've taken out 3 times and he made an offer, he did what he needed to do, and we had our building inspection yesterday. It can be done. So let's get out there and look at some properties. We'll start touring the homes. As you're deciding, I definitely want to be here, or I think I want to be closer to the train, or I think I want more land. A lot of it is going to depend on your price and your purchasability, but we'll find the home that checks all the boxes, and then we'll put in a formal offer. A formal offer here in Connecticut is in writing. So let's talk about that next. The written offer is our formal proposal to the seller. It's comprised of terms and conditions, which means the money and how you're going to give it to them, whether it's a cash purchase or whether you're getting a mortgage, and when. When are you going to do this? Are you going to do it at the end of June when the kids get out of school? Or are you going to do it sooner than that? The rest of the offer document, that includes everything else that you would love to see in your new home when you get in there, which means I'd like the swing set to stay so my kids can play on it. I'd like the pool table to stay in the lower level, or the big screen TV and the movie theater chairs. All of those things can be discussed. Basically, a formal written offer to the seller is your outline of everything that you would like to see happen in the transaction. This is just our starting point. The thing I would love you to remember is that every single piece of the written offer is negotiable. Once it's fully signed and everybody has spoken their piece, then we actually have an agreement. But at this time, it's negotiable. For example, you might say, we would love to close on July 10th. And the seller might come back to you and say, we really want to close June 30th. The first thing that we're going to do is figure out your offer price. I'll be honest, properties don't typically sit on the market all that long in Fairfield County. So if a property has just come on the market, I'm not sure how wise it is to come in below the asking price. There might even be multiple offers on the property, and if you'd like to be the offer that's accepted, you might need to actually increase your offer a little bit or a lot. That's going to be completely up to you, and it's your decision alone. Now, if a home has been on the market for a few weeks, this might be the perfect opportunity for you to negotiate a little bit. What we do is we create almost like a market analysis for the home you're looking at purchasing. So we'll look at comparable properties that have sold, that have similar features, and we'll discuss, and you'll be able to decide what is the best offer that you'd like to make so that the sellers will consider accepting your offer. No matter what we'll do is we will create a pricing strategy, one that you feel comfortable with, so that you're making a smart offer that is competitive and fair. Remember, we're going to do plenty of research, and you'll be able to see it and ask questions. This way, you will be determining what the best price is for you to offer, and I really want you to know that it's completely your decision. I'll guide you and talk about the pros and the cons of each of the properties, maybe when they were on the market, when they closed, how far away they are, if they've got a 2-car garage and this house has 1, or whatever. But we will go over this information in detail. Once we've settled on the price that you'd like to offer, the next thing that we're going to talk about is an inspection period, or a due diligence period in some areas. So this is when the buyer, you, get to do the diligent work, making the determination if you want to go forward and purchase this property. One of the biggest things is the building inspection. A building inspection can entail a septic inspection, a radon inspection, a water inspection, a well inspection, and those all take place during your inspection period, which is spelled out with a date on the actual contract. This period, or your inspection period, is when, as you're doing these inspections, if you find something that doesn't sit well with you, you'll be able to get out of this agreement, this contract that both parties have signed, without penalty. You'll get your deposit back, and the only thing that you will have invested is a lot of time and energy and anxiety, but the cost of an inspection is short money if you decide that you really want to get out of this transaction. An inspection period is typically 7 to 10 days. Our market is pretty fast right now, so I would say work with 10 days, and you can get out of the contract based on the building inspection results. I'm not saying that the parties to the contract, especially the seller, because you're the buyer, are going to be happy should you decide to cancel the contract. Remember, they've looked at your offer, they've fallen in love with the hope that they're moving and the belief that they're moving. So just know that it's not every day that contracts get canceled, but I do want you to know that this is one of those periods where you can get out of an inspection. You can get out of your contract without penalty. The other times in the contract, there could be consequences. Yes, of course, there are other ways to get out of the contract, and some of those come with dates and specific actions, and we will be well aware of them, as will you, and you will be guided by both your attorney and me, so that none of those dates are missed. The inspection contingency is almost like a get out of jail free card. So just know that you can only use it once, and the seller probably won't be that happy, but it is there for you. Even if you get cold feet, even if you're nervous about your job, based on the building inspection results, you can say, I can't go forward. I just can't do it. And you'll be able to get out of it. Well, Connecticut is an attorney state, and what that means is we need an attorney at every closing, and we have an attorney that represents the buyer, and we have an attorney that represents the seller. So during this inspection period, you'll work closely with your attorney, especially if you are having second thoughts. The flip side of getting out of a contract is knowing 1,000% that you want to buy this home. Come heaven or high water, you really are ready to waive all the contingencies. You just want to get into contract. Well, if that's the case, then you might want to tighten up or discuss maybe not even having an inspection. Or maybe you're a general contractor and you're thinking, I don't know if I want to have one. I'd rather my offer feel contingency free. I won't suggest that you waive a building inspection. That's completely up to you, but I do suggest that you talk with the attorney about it. Many real estate agents, me included, have great relationships with real estate attorneys, and I depend on them. I want them to have their legal eyeballs review the documents and memorialize them within their office and with their paralegal, but also with me and with you, the buyer. There is an item on the realtor contract where an attorney can get you out of a transaction by invoking the attorney privilege, but it comes with deadlines and dates, and it's really important that those are met, or the other side of the transaction can say, you missed the window. We want you to move forward. And that's because they're motivated to move on as well. Since I am not an attorney, I will defer to the attorneys to discuss that with you. But I can tell you that they will look closely at that item and they will guide you. I'll just reiterate, nobody is happy when a transaction is canceled. I mean, even the buyers, even you had your hopes and dreams pinned on this property, and then maybe something changed. I mean, maybe it could be anything. Think about anything. You do need to have a relationship with the attorney, and your attorney will guide you as you go through this. So let's talk about the money. Let's talk about the earnest money or the deposit funds. Typically, this is about 1%, and that old adage, put your money where your mouth is, well, an offer agreement that is sent on your behalf should really include money. Otherwise, it's hot air. How is a seller going to believe that you can afford the home? Send them some money. And all it needs to be, you can wire it, you can find out who the seller's attorney is, you can drop off a bank check. And remember, if anything happens within that due diligent period, the inspection period, you can get that money back. The initial deposit is typically about 1% of the purchase price. It would be written to the seller's attorney, and they would hold it in escrow for the transaction. It's not for the buyer, and it's not for the seller, it's for the transaction. Remember, we're in a pretty competitive housing market, so what you might want to do is increase your deposit money and or shorten the inspection period. Maybe make it 4 days or 5 days, and then your offer might be considered more favorably because you're shortening the period with which you might decide, or some other buyer could decide to back out. It gives the seller more security. That deposit, the 1%, is due within 3 days of your offer being accepted. And that's actually governed by the Banking Commission in the state of Connecticut. Just know that if your offer is accepted on a Thursday, I would do everything I could to get that bank check or the money to the seller's attorney for Friday or Saturday, or so that they could deposit it on Monday. It's really important. The other contingencies in your contract could be an appraisal contingency and a finance contingency. The finance contingency is almost like a safety net, especially if you're getting a mortgage or if you are financing via any way. This finance contingency has a date to it and everybody will be paying attention to it. The standard financing contingency, I think, is about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4, depending on how far out your closing date is. And very often you're going to have had your pre-approval already, but as the lender digs further into all aspects of the financing, they might realize when they check your employment that you've been cut down to 4 days instead of 5 days, or your overtime can't be counted, or your student loan, which was in both your name and your husband's name, is showing up as not have been released. Any of these items need to be addressed and cleared up. The finance contingency protects you if that can't be done within the time frame on the contract, and if the seller perhaps doesn't want to accept a request for an extension. All I can say is, if you're working with one of our preferred lenders, they can typically close you whenever you would like to close. They're great, and they communicate extremely well. Next comes the appraisal contingency, and the appraisal contingency is really there for you and for the bank, because what the bank does is they send out an independent third party to come to the home to view the interior and look around and determine the home's value. If the value comes in higher, which doesn't happen all that often, then your agreed upon selling price, the price you offered and that the sellers agreed to. But if it comes in lower than the agreed upon selling price, then we have to have a conversation. The conversation really is about additional negotiation. As the buyer agent, I would love to ask the seller to reduce the price, to reduce the selling price that you're going to buy the home for to the appraisal price. Or maybe if you could, split the difference with the seller. So if we were back to that $100,000 and it came in at 90, instead of them lowering the price to 90, maybe they'd come down to 95,000. And then you'd have to come up with the additional $5,000. Because the way it works is, if the bank appraises the home at $90,000, they're going to give you whatever the loan amount is that you were pre-approved for off of the appraised value, not off of the selling price. And you might have done your financials based on the selling price. So this piece is important. So the other thing is to just think, remember when I said you really want the house? Well, if you really want the house, maybe you're gonna just say, okay, I'm putting in the extra $10,000. I'm gonna help them buy that house. It's up to you, and it's all negotiable. But it is another way for you to decide, you know what, I can't buy this house because I needed all the money. And you never know. Sometimes sellers actually will come back and say, we'll reduce the price. That's a good thing. It's actually been a long time since I've had an appraisal come in low, but it does happen, and it's happened recently to a few of my colleagues. And interestingly enough, when it's a very competitive situation, some of the buyers might waive the finance contingency altogether, which means no finance contingency. It's almost like paying cash for the home, no appraisal contingency. So recently I had a situation where we had 7 offers, and the buyer that really was motivated to purchase the home decided we're waiving the finance contingency altogether. Now I knew, because they were upfront and transparent, that they were still going to get a mortgage, but they did not need to have the finance contingency in the offer. They were that confident with their financial viability. We had an appraisal, the property appraised, but the transaction was not contingent on that. So their offer was the successful offer, and they now own that property. I should add that they went way over the asking price as well. So it was a twofold decision by these great sellers. All of these things that we're talking about are contract terms. So remember when I said the offer is made up of terms and conditions? So these are the terms and the conditions of your financing and how you're actually going to get to the closing table and purchase the home. They're all spelled out clearly on the contract. And we will talk about all of them. Should you decide that you want to include something, strengthen something, or actually reduce or take something away. The last item is the closing date, and that's kind of exciting. What that means though is, when do you actually want to take ownership of that property? In New York, you can close and actually stay in the property, and we actually can negotiate that into the offer. In Connecticut, but it's not standard. It's not what happens most of the time. Just know that it could be an option, which just goes to show you everything is negotiable, even the closing date. So the closing date in Fairfield County is typically 30 days. It could be 45, and sometimes a seller will say, I want to close the second week of June. I have a client that actually just stated that, so I expressed it and represented it to any and all buyers that were out there. So the sellers were happy and the buyers were able to make it work. The big thing to remember about the closing date is it has to be agreed upon by both the buyer and the seller. If your seller is moving across country and they want their kids to get out of school, they need to pack, they need to figure out how to get the dog across country, or their new construction home is being built and it's not ready yet, it's running behind schedule, they might actually ask if there's any flexibility. And maybe you have it. Maybe you're living with your parents, or you're living in somebody's basement. It doesn't matter. It all comes down to clear communication. One of my buyers asked me once if we could close on the weekend. It was a cash deal, and the attorney actually said they could, but I wasn't sure. I don't think they can wire funds on a Saturday. So most closings in Connecticut take place on banking days. So that's typically Monday to Friday. The money needs to be wired because you close as of that day. So just remember, if you're thinking you want to close, you can't close on July 4th so that your family can come help you move in over the weekend. You have to close on a day where the banks are open and able to receive and send money, and where the attorney can go record at the town hall that you are the proud homeowner. There was something in, I don't want to say the olden days, but before the pandemic, that we would see sometimes in an offer from a buyer, and that was a home sale contingency. And in Connecticut, that's actually called a Hubbard Clause or a Hubbard Rider. And the reason it's called that is because the people that first crafted it, their last name was Hubbard. A Hubbard Rider, what it does is it protects a buyer from actually having to pay two mortgages. It means if you make an offer and in your offer you have a Hubbard Clause or a Hubbard Rider attached to the agreement, it means that you as a buyer need to sell your current home in order to purchase the one you're making an offer on. Very often it really means that you want the funds from the sale of your home to put toward the home you're buying. Completely understandable, right? You want the lowest mortgage possible. Let's close on that home and put it toward your new home. Well, there are all kinds of dates and time frames attached with a Hubbard. For example, I'll put my home on the market and we'll get it sold in 60 days, and we'll buy this new listing that we're making an offer on in 60 days. Well, what if your home doesn't sell? You're not going to want to go forward with that purchase unless you come into money and decide that the money is not an option, or you're going to rent your house. Think about that. Maybe you decide you'll rent your house. So the challenge for a buyer is that when you have a Hubbard, the seller can still market their home. So that means when you're looking online, you're going to see that it says active with a Hubbard or active under a Hubbard agreement. So if I'm working with a different buyer and I don't know anything about the Hubbard that's on that listing, I come in with my buyer who does not have a home to sell. They sold their home 6 months ago and they're staying at an Airbnb. They are ready to go, more than ready to go. So we make an offer, tight window for inspections and everything. What happens is the listing agent has to go back to the seller and say, we've received another offer. In this market, not many sellers in Fairfield County like to entertain an offer with a Hubbard rider attached to it. Now, if a home has been on the market for a while, they might be more open to it. In fact, I remember having a client probably in the early 2000s, and their attorney said, go home and sell your house and then come back. And they put their house on the market, they got an offer in 2 weeks, and in 4 weeks we were contingency free, just waiting to close. But sometimes that's the tough love that an attorney will provide and say, you know, it can work. I mean, anything is possible and anything and everything is negotiable. But since there's not enough inventory here in Fairfield County, it's better to be as streamlined and ready, willing, and able as a buyer that you can possibly be. I know that's hard to hear, but the truth is, get all of your financial ducks in a row and you'll be ready to move forward. The flip side of that coin, if you need to sell your house with limited inventory when you put on the buyer hat, I can completely understand not wanting to give up your primary residence when you don't know where you're going to live yet. Just know that it takes effort, diligence, communication, and working in partnership. It's like a two-step that we make this all work together. It happens all the time, and I know you can do it too. I don't think I mentioned that if you were the offer that was submitted with the Hubbard, you do have a little bit of time to make the decision if you want to get out of the deal because your home hasn't sold, or you might know that tomorrow is the day that your buyer's finance contingency is up. So you just might be thinking, I need 2 days, I need 48 hours. There is a time period from when you need to get back to the agent, tell your agent, like, listen, we got 48 hours. Or maybe your buyer is gonna say, we're good. And then you can get back to your offer, the seller the home that you're buying, and you can say, we're good. Our buyers got their financing and we are all set. We're ready to rock and roll, and all we need to do is wait now for the closing date. That's great news. The thing to note is if you decide to not go forward and purchase the property and you had a Hubbard Clause or a Hubbard rider attached, you get your deposit back. It's important to have that actual rider involved if you have a home sale contingency. We want to protect all of your money and you. So after all of that, we have all of the terms and all of the items that we've talked about, and we want to formally present them to the seller. So what do? We write it up. It's really important. So much of writing it up these days is done online via the online e-signature platforms like DocuSign is the company that Keller Williams that we use. And we can also do it in person over Zoom. We can email them, you can print them. We try to make it as easy as possible for you. So we write it up, we send it over to the seller, cross our fingers, and we see if their thinking is in alignment with what we're thinking. Sometimes it is right off the bat. Other times they might want to sleep on it and they'll get back to us tomorrow. All is great, and all I suggest and we swear by is communicating frequently and clearly. It's really important. Once it's decided that the seller is in agreement with our offer, all the parties sign the document. Then you have what's called a fully signed agreement. Your offer is fully signed, and now the work begins. So what do I mean by that? I mean, you have a signed agreement, but remember all of those contingencies and the dates? Well, guess what? The clock starts ticking. We have to now start working on all of them. This is the exciting part. It's like an adventure, and you know what? It's really pretty humbling that we can all do this, so it's great. So the first thing we do, we get your document over to the attorney so they can review it. We get you some names of trusted home inspectors, because if it's a Sunday that your offer is accepted, we want to try and have that home inspection as soon as possible. And honestly, they're going to go from the roof down to the foundation. Typically, a building inspection report is anywhere from 45 to 80 pages. Sometimes it's so big, all you're going to get is a link. They're not even going to send you the whole thing because it would probably clog up your inbox. No matter what, we will get all of your questions answered and we will look into them seriously. You also have the ability, should you not want the seller to repair anything, to ask for a credit. I mean, it's very common that someone might say, you don't need to do it, we'll take care of it. Especially if you, as a buyer, have any knowledge about trades. I mean, think about it. Electricians buy homes, plumbers buy homes, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning contractors buy homes. You can say, just give us the credit. We'll keep the money in our pocket and we will have this work addressed. Maybe that makes you feel more comfortable. Everything is negotiable. Don't forget that. So right after the offer is accepted, you've done your building inspection, you've done your mortgage application, you're picking your movers, you're getting insurance quotes for the home, you're decluttering your own place because you don't want to bring everything. You've decided it's time, you're going to redecorate the primary bedroom, etc., etc. It's like a feast or famine period. So during these first 2 weeks, it's really like a feast. You're busy, it's crazy. The lender is asking you for more forms. I'm asking you for more forms, and it's exciting. And then after that 14 days, it kind of quiets down. So feast or famine. Now you're quiet. Now you're just thinking, well, what the heck are we doing? We're just waiting till the closing date. And that's the truth. You're just waiting. So if it's a 2-month period, a 60-day period before you're going to close, those first 15 days, the middle 30 could be kind of quiet. Do not go on vacation or do anything though. Just keep your finances intact as they are so that there are no surprises that creep up as the lender keeps progressing to get you to your clear to close period. So the last 2 weeks before the closing, you've scheduled your movers, you're getting rid of things, you've got the volunteer organization to come and pick up what you're not taking. Everything is good to go. It's a little bit like another feast period at the very end. Just know that it's a process and there's a pathway. So what happens next? Well, we're really close to the closing day. You're gonna actually do a walkthrough. And when you do your walkthrough, I suggest that we do it the day of the closing. What we're looking for is that the property is in the similar state that it was when you viewed the property. If the seller has moved the couch out of the basement or the couch out of the attic, you just want to be sure that there aren't like holes in the walls, or they've moved their oriental rug underneath the floor. It looks completely different. I mean, we look closely, and most of the time, the sellers are aware of these things. You'll already have been made aware of them, and we will work through them. So that piece is important too. A walkthrough is important. I always suggest that my clients do one, and I don't like them to do it the week before. Let's try to do it the day of, and if possible or critical, and they can only do it the night before, then we'll do it the night before. So after the walkthrough, what do? You go to the attorney's office, and I like to say that you're going to close twice. The first thing you close is your mortgage. You're going to fill out all of the financial documents that you're already aware of because you're going to have been talking with your lender throughout this last week primarily, a ton. Close the mortgage so the bank knows that you and the bank are going to buy the house, unless you're buying it in cash or whatever. But if you're having a mortgage, you got to close the mortgage first, and then they do what's called fund the loan. You're clear to close, they fund the loan, and it goes to the attorney's office, and then the attorney has you typically sign your papers or the documents for purchasing the home. And often the seller's attorney will have come down to the buyer's attorney's office, your attorney's office, and they'll do that in person. And then once your attorney sends via wire the funds to the seller's attorney, and those funds are received, that's when you own the home. I know that this can sound or seem like a daunting process. And you know what? When you work with an amazing, experienced agent, it's an adventure and it's really pretty fun and exciting. And you get to learn a lot and you get to be a homeowner and begin to build wealth through that home ownership and maybe change the path of your legacy. Maybe you're a first-time buyer in your family. All I can say is I would be honored to help you in this process. I pride myself on being thorough, making sure that you understand, being patient and clear with the communication, and giving you the time that you need. Thank you for watching. It's time to get excited for your next real estate chapter, hopefully in Fairfield County. Thanks again.